First of all, we don't do gay weddings or mixed race.
Okay, so why not?
Because of our Christian race. I mean, our Christian belief.
Okay, we're Christians as well. So,
yes,
what in the Bible tells you that?
Well, I don't want to argue my faith.
No, that's fine.
We just don't participate.
Okay.
We just choose not to.
Okay, so that's your Christian belief, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Right. So not entirely sure how this kind of argumentation has creeped its ugly head after the gay cake issue from a few years ago. But there it is, doing its rounds on Twitter. Whether the video is old or not, I honestly don't mind too much. It gives me an opportunity to say something I think that is remarkably relevant, and also segue onto a subject also concerning food. So, to address the comments in that video, where in your faith does it say you can't or should not serve somebody because of sexuality or race? I'm not entirely sure capitalism is in there anywhere, in fact. On the flip side to that, you are well within your right to refuse service for whatever reason you want. If you're publicly chastised for it, so be it. If people stop going to your establishment and you lose money, so be it. If people decide to sue you for it, well, then we have more content to laugh at. I personally take the view that it doesn't matter to me who you are, what you believe. Money is money. It's why I held a somewhat consistent belief when Ralph raised money for a kid's charity for others to then chastise because the money came from, air quotes, Nazis. As far as I'm concerned, the money was going to charity. And let's not forget the minor Freudian slip when you said because of our Christian race. Right. Okay. I think we've got all we need to know about you from that. Because let's face it, the rest of your arguments were absolute bull. Okay. It should be noted, this video is not a PO. It comes from a Christian-owned wedding venue that refused to host mixed-race wedding because Jeebus. The company, for the sake of it, are called Boone's Camp Event Hall. Yay. Thought you should all know this. Oh, and I should of course recognise the fact that this is not something uncommon in that particular area of the US. If you want, you can have a little skip over to Tennessee, where Donnie Reagan of Tennessee's Happy Valley Church of Jesus Christ says similar things in videos that look like they come from the 1950s. Much tolerance, I know. His argumentation being, white women having a mulatto child, ooh, bad. And a black man marrying and having children with a white woman doesn't want children to look like him. Bad. By the way, I'm just paraphrasing. I'll link the relevant articles down below because I don't want to actually repeat what this idiot says. Now, the subject I want to cover concerns something quite alarming, but also highly amusing. Amusing because this is an absolute statement of bad parenting and consequences. Bad parenting because you've allowed your child to eat only a particular food group, and a bad thing because the kid now has a problem that is going to take time to recover. So a teenager in the UK is the first to go deaf and blind due to what has been called a junk food diet. What was this kid eating, you say? A portion of chips from a fish and chip shop every day. Essentially, they were just eating potato, bread, and processed meat. And I said potato, crisps and chips. Yeah. Much healthy, I know. Oddly enough, I do know a guy who falls into this bracket. When I worked for a company called Anovo, there was a man who I worked with who'd actually been on one of those Weird Eater TV shows, and the only thing he ate was potato-based. Now, luckily, while his sight was diminishing, he had managed, when he went on the show, to finally get over his phobia of other foods, and was starting to eat more vegetables. So there is a chance that his sight has somewhat improved since then. I mean, if he eats enough carrots, he can see in the dark, right? Isn't that how it works? So it isn't uncommon that some people obsess over a food group or develop phobias for others. But the consequence of his is that he had a number of vitamin deficiencies, the kid in the article, that is, not the guy I used to work with, although he had his own ones. Seriously, I pinched his skin, it took forever to get back to where it was. The boy referenced in the article developed a condition called nutritional optic neuropathy, or NON. This is more commonly seen in malnourished children in developing countries, where purely dietary causes of NON are rare in the Western world, unsurprisingly so. Then again, lazy parenting and enabling stupid phobias like that. NON manifests in damage to the optic nerve, which then leads on to sight loss and, if undiagnosed, blindness. So laziness when sight loss was becoming apparent on the parent and child part, but mostly let's blame the parents here. This is a 17-year-old who has been allowed for a decade to eat absolute crap, and for it, he is in danger. Now someone might say, well, he's almost 18, we can stop caring then, right? No, let's go back 10 years and start pointing a finger. What kind of parent is so lazy that all they feed their children are chips from a chippy, crisps, white bread and some processed meat? Essentially, the kid was eating cooked ham sandwiches. By the way, cooked ham in the UK is a block of ham sliced into 40 pieces, and that's injected with a considerable amount of water. It is the lowest of the low. White bread, which could have come from like Tesco No Frills own brand bread, which has virtually no nutritional value whatsoever. Chips covered in oil, and crisps, I would assume salt and vinegar, because kid like them spices, right? And salt and vinegar is also quite common on a portion of chips. Unsurprising also consequences from this is that the boys developed hearing loss and bone weakness. Hardly a shocker again. Where's the calcium in any of the food he was eating? Oh, that's right. There was none. And as far as hearing loss goes, well, if he couldn't fit the chips in his mouth, he was going to try and digest them through his ear, right? I would assume he used chips also to loosen up some of the earwax in his ears when people were telling him you're going blind. If you don't know, there's actually a little science behind that. It used to be that to release some of the wax build-up in someone's ear, you would put oil in your ear. Not hot, cold, and it would help break down the wax so your ear could be syringed, where they pump water into your ear to remove the wax blockage. Because anyone who's stupid enough to use cotton buds deep in their ear is a moron. You're just compacting it. Seriously, stop it. This particular child, who is obviously unnamed, has suffered from a rare eating disorder called ARFID, which is Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder, where the sufferer becomes sensitive to taste, smell, texture, or appearance of certain foods, with him acknowledging to a doctor he did not like the texture of fruit and vegetables. Had they considered giving him, I don't know, nutritional packs injected into chipsticks, or having him spend time with psychologists, and I say this after watching that show with my friend on, where they will help him get to the point where he can do it. All it takes, after all, is a considerable amount of effort to help someone get to a point, and if started at a younger age, this wouldn't become such a mountain. As a child, and I remember this, by the way, quite clearly, my sisters hated the texture of baked beans one week, and then tomatoes the other week, and then the next week, potato, then the next week, broccoli, then the next week they didn't like the texture of corned beef, but thankfully no one likes the texture of corned beef. It is an abomination that should be nuked. Dr. Denise Atan of the University Hospitals of Bristol NHS Foundation Trust co-authored a report that was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine and has treated the patient, saying there's a lack of awareness among healthcare professionals and the public about the link between poor diet and sight loss. What is unusual about this case is the extreme picky eating and the fact it had gone on for quite some time. Lazy parenting. That's the diagnosis had been missed and the visual loss had become permanent. With the link between poor nutrition and vision being known for quite some time, at least some among specialists in neuro-ophthalmology, the problem is that awareness among other health professionals isn't quite so high. This whole parity of esteem thing, do you remember that? Yeah. Bit late for this guy, but there's a chance to help him in other respects. Nutritional deficiency is key, and now he can't see certain foods. Now it comes down to dealing and handling the texture of the foods, getting him to the point where he can understand the consequence of ignoring it and finding a way to get past it, or enabling certain ways to understand why a texture exists the way it does, so as to better enable the patient, now blind, to be able to fully take that food in without harming their body any further. Interestingly enough, a study of 19 European countries by the University of Sao Paulo last year found that the UK families, by and large, purchased more ultra-processed food than any other in Europe, amounting to roughly 50% of the diet, which is understandable. We have for a long time been a huge importer of those precious E-numbers, and quality of living, cost of living do play a part, of course. So one can hope that the government will start to push those away. I don't mean forcibly, I mean in the sense of encouraging people to be healthier at a younger age. because there is some damage that has happened to a lot of people from my generation that they don't recover from because of the foods they only had access to. For example, I only had access as a kid to knock-off quick-save version of Weetabix, and I'm pretty sure it's only digested recently. I had that when I was about 8. Some of that stuff just doesn't break down like chewing gum. It is almost tragic. Among many of the concerns the kid had, unsurprising, he also had a B12 deficiency. That is almost the most common thing I've noticed with anyone. It really is. I don't understand how people can't just take a supplement if they don't get enough. Hell, even I do. It's not difficult. B12 deficiencies, for those who don't know, typically causes fatigue. Typically, if you have to go to a doctor for it and you can't take a supplement because of whatever reason, yours being that disorder you have, a vitamin injection is normally what you'd go for. Many doctors have now posited that it is more than likely the sight loss, of which is roughly around 2 to 200, which renders him legally blind in the United Kingdom, was down to a lack of vitamin B and copper, and that bone weakness is caused by not consuming oily fish, cheese and eggs, which most of you know contain vitamin D. Also, another supplement he could have taken if he didn't like the textures. Of course, I would prefer, and it's easier for the body to absorb, through eating certain food groups. It's the argument about why you eat meat, because it's easier for the body to take in certain things. Of course, if you adapt, that becomes less of a problem, but that's not a solution realistically. It just gets messy. I find this case quite interesting because the deficiency list of what he was deficient in is extraordinarily long. His hearing can recover even though there's no obvious structural damage to it. His eyesight will never recover. The boy's mother has said that the condition has devastated his life, him dropping out of college, and she has given up a job to care for him. I would say better late than never, but this is a bit late, and quite frankly, you did a rubbish job for the first 17 years, didn't you? The remainder of the article I'm going to link below referencing this paints a rather sob story picture. How about this for a picture? You failed as a mother. I'm sorry if that seems a bit impatient, and I know many of you expect me to be a bit nicer normally, but with this case, it genuinely came down to how proactive one was willing to be, in fact, to get him the help he needed at a younger age. The inaction and enabling has caused him to get where he is. Now, yes, he should also take responsibility, which is why I said 2 people, because this article doesn't reference his father. Doctors failed too, because they should have noticed this sooner. Then again, if he wasn't taken to them, what could they diagnose? In truth, they didn't know much about him until he was 15 and came in with sight issues and hearing deficiencies. And then they noticed all the vitamin problems. Geniuses. Since I'm done with this, I'm very much keen to know what you think about it, both video and article. Also, tonight, 9 PM GMT over on the Omegon Plays channel, going to stream some American Truck. I might stream on Twitch just before. Also, there's a new video on the Moisky Live channel. Links to all of that down below. Have a lovely day, everyone.